All right, welcome everybody to another episode of Finance Junkies. This is episode 475. We will only stop when we get to episode number 737,000.
Brought to you by Hyundai Ioniq.
Ioniq.
There you go. 3 reasons why it's better than the Model 3. Thank you.
Do you know why I said we will stop at episode 737,000?
737,000?
That'll be the final episode of Finance Junkies.
I mean, wait, 27,000 days.
That's the year I die.
27,000. Wait, 10,000 days is 27 years.
Why are you
anyone in the chat get the
an
reference?
That's why.
Anyone in the chat get the reference?
Because he's an idiot. That's why.
No, I'm not an idiot. Chris, you know the reference. I'm not an idiot though. It's a good reference. All right, Chris, educate us. What's the reference?
I don't know. I just think you're an idiot.
Well, someone said it. Growth Stock Wizard said it to Breaking Bad. Is that the dollar?
You guys
amount?
never watched Walter White? He said he'll stop cooking meth when he makes $737,000. Then he'll be done.
Oh well, that I remember. Yes,
and we know he didn't stop
though. Yeah, right. But you said
Finance Junkies never going to stop.
Days. You said days. If you would have said the money, I would have caught that.
That sounded like way too much of a random number to be something like plausible. So I was like,
well, that episode of season 4 when Skylar and him, if you finished it, Amit? Is it not spoiling it for anyone?
I've watched it so many times.
Okay, that episode in season 4 when they're in the space, like the storage space, and they're sitting there with the money, and she's looking at it, and she's like, "How is this enough? Like, you know what I mean? How much is enough? Here it is." And you're looking at 750 grand. Oh man, that was such a great scene.
I agree.
Well, nowadays with inflation, it wouldn't do much.
I think Breaking Bad is a top 5 show of all time.
It's a top 5. It's a top 5. It's a top 5.
All right, so we got a lot to talk about. One real quick thing I want to do, and we'll see if we can get this done by the end of the stream. We got Carlos some followers the other day. Vitaly got some followers. Christopher Patel is 37 followers away from 6,000.
Damn!
6,000. So I put the link in the chat. We got 149 people here, 167. Please, if you're not on Twitter, make a Twitter account and follow Chris. And if you haven't followed,
why don't you just start a new Threads account and just start over and get all
well, that segues to a great discussion.
Get all your followers on Threads. I heard that's the hot new happening social media that's going to destroy
Vitaly's on it. So Vitaly, you used it. What are your first impressions of Zuck's $44 billion competitor that he paid $0 billion to make?
Right.
Tell us how great it is.
I like Carlos is shitting on Meta again as I am making bank literally as we speak. Thank you once again, Zuckerberg.
Which, by the way, this might push the stock up a lot, by the way. I think.
Yes, I've always said this is going over $300. We are $5 or so away from $300. So I'm not going to claim the victory yet. I'll wait till the $300 actually hits. But we've closed that gap. I don't know, Chris, if remember we talked about the chart. We've closed that gap. And if we can stick above this, I mean, 316, 320 seems very doable, in my opinion. So that's great. In terms of the actual app, I am using it. And look, it's a ghost town right now. It's 2 million people, I think, joined today. So I'm not sure exactly how it's going to play itself out. But Twitter has its audience. It has 450 million people. They're not going to go to Threads. That's not going to happen.
But if there's so much bank,
Hold on. Yeah, there is a lot of bank.
Yeah.
But the people who use Instagram, 2.35 billion people, a lot of those people are going to migrate. And Zuck might have the first platform that has over 1 billion users for Threads because it's easy to migrate. It connects to your Instagram. It connects to your, I think, Facebook too. I'm not sure about that. But basically, it's just easy for those people to transfer and use that service. So I think the 2 billion people who don't use Twitter are not going to care about Twitter. And a lot of those people end up on Threads. That's my thoughts on it.
Carlos, your opinion on what Zucks is trying to do. I want you to apply it. I want you to answer it from a business perspective and then from a can it really take people off Twitter and become the new town square perspective.
From a business perspective, it's a smart move to do it. I mean, he's made a lot of success by copying the successes of others, and he's had some success copying, say, certain features. But with this thing, I think it's going to be an utter failure. I think it's going to be an absolute disaster. I haven't used the app, but even talking to you before we went live, you told me and you said that the interface is horrible, that it's garbage. And granted, it's new, but we're going to be harsh on it, right? Because you're trying to come in and compete with Elon Musk. The other part of it is there's a lot to unpack here. I actually wrote my thoughts down because a lot of times when we finish the pods, I feel like there's a lot of points that I didn't make. But number one, okay, so let's say that you get some of these users that are on Threads. You're only monetizing those users once. You can't monetize them on Facebook and on Instagram at the same time. So I don't understand how the boost, how that would be a boost to the bottom line. You're either monetizing that person on Facebook, on Instagram, or on Threads. So
it's a good point, because if the ads aren't more profitable,
right, you're passing them around to the different social media platforms. What does it matter if the 2 billion people are on one?
It matters. It does matter, by the way. If people spend 5 minutes more looking at ads on whatever Threads, 5 minutes more, that equates to something to the bottom line.
What
and
I'm
this
saying
is almost.
But those people would have had to come from Twitter.
Almost
come
cheap.
That's five, but that's 5 minutes that they're not spending on Instagram, where they would have seen an ad as well.
Where the ads are better.
No. I think you're wrong. I think you're wrong. I think
Of
when
course
I go on
you
Instagram,
do. You always think I'm wrong. But
when I go on Instagram, by the way, I'm on it for whatever. I'm not actually a big Instagram user, but I use it for 5 minutes. I looked at whatever. And then I go to Twitter and do whatever I do there.
Right.
And now I'll go to Threads and do whatever I do there. So I'm giving everybody the 5 minutes. That's my point. It's just additive to Facebook. So whatever they can get.
What I'm saying is, okay, what I'm saying is, if you can only open one app at a time, bro. So if you're on Facebook and you're on you're on Instagram, or you're on Threads, it's all the same. It's all the same spot.
I don't agree with
so
you.
Anyway, that's one of my that's one of my points. I don't really see that. The other part of it is like, look, you call out a myth for not caring about free speech and privacy, but then you openly support the guy who is arguably the most offensive when it comes to free speech, whose platform is responsible for the largest social media propaganda platform in the world, with like election interference and pandemic bans and misinformation. And so it seems a bit hypocritical.
Okay, let me answer that. Sure. You're directing it to me. One,
because you know what comes to mind? There's a quote from Confucius that says,
okay,
the master
Let's
said,
about
man brought up Confucius. Okay,
Yeah.
What's the quote?
He had to look this up because he wrote it down. He wanted to sound intelligent here.
This is
That's good. It's going to sound intelligent.
This is a quote from Confucius. The master said, if your conduct is determined solely by considerations of profit, you will arouse great resentment.
Okay, sounds good. Number one, Facebook investor right here, Carlos, the biggest hypocrite of them all, made his bank on Facebook, decided to sell out. All of a sudden, he's got a lot of morality. Number two, the guy who keeps shitting on Carp bought 100 shares of Palantir, shitting on Palantir still, but did buy it. So the hypocrisy goes both ways. And anytime you buy any stock in the S&P, okay, you're killing little Nigerians somewhere. Or you're killing little African.
That's true. He's right.
My point is,
okay.
You buy
that aside.
My point is, you drove an oil car. For goddamn.
Let me resolve this. Actually, let me resolve this.
I'm just pointing out the hypocrisy is so thick with this guy. It's so amazingly
you're making
thick
nonsense
that
arguments.
you just pick and choose your battles when you're losing all of them because you do the exact same thing every American does.
No, I don't.
Yet you are picking your battles.
I have principles and I stick to my principles.
Can I resolve this really quickly before you? Can I just interject really quickly? I think this will resolve something. Besides the actual stock investment hypocritical stuff, because we're all hypocrites for investing in certain stocks, right? Carlos may feel more slightly.
There's a certain amount of you can't to play the game. You gotta be. You gotta be okay with some of that.
Okay, so we're allowed to invest and be hypocrites in the market, but we're not allowed to be hypocrites.
You want me to make here's my point.
No, so let me do the middle ground. Let me do the middleman thing. It's not about. I'm not even talking about the stocks. Forget the stocks. I'm talking about. Carlos is a decent point, Vitaly. You're a big free speech guy.
Yep.
But you're
privacy, except
hold on, let me finish. You're supporting a platform that has been known to censor when you have an alternative that literally says anything goes. So forget the stock, right? You may make bank on the stock. That doesn't matter. It's more so a question of ethically, if you gave me and Tanner a lot of shit, why are you kind of just juicy to post on Threads knowing that they're going to censor it? I think that's more the question versus the stock.
Okay, so in America, I actually do believe you have freedom of speech, okay, at least in terms of the government giving you or allowing freedom of speech in our Bill of Rights. That doesn't mean the companies have to give us freedom of speech. When I walk into Walmart, I cannot scream fire. It's not allowed. Okay, I cannot yell at somebody. It's not allowed.
False equivalent.
Hold on.
Number one.
No. It's not a false equivalent.
It is a false equivalent.
Let me do this. Let me give 3 minutes to Vitaly, 3 minutes to Carlos, completely uninterrupted. 3 minutes to Vitaly, go. 3 minutes to Carlos.
Yes. In America, I vote with my. I don't even need 3 minutes. In America, I vote with. Carlos can talk with 3 minutes because it's all bullshit. But I can vote basically with my dollars. And I can go and use Meta one day, and then one day I do want my privacy, and I don't, and I go to DuckDuckGo. I'm allowed to do that as a free-thinking American. That is the whole point, that I have, with my dollars, I can vote on it. What we were talking about in terms of them using our data the way we don't want, and we want to control it, I still agree with that. By the way, Twitter's using our data. It's not like they're not, okay? Facebook is using our data. Google is using our data. That's what should change in time. I hope that changes where we have the say, hey, I want you to stop using this, or I want you to stop using that, or you get to not use this anymore. That's what we were talking about back in the, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. It's different than me using Instagram, which Carlos also uses, by the way, using that and understanding that they're using my data and feeding me ads, and then going to Twitter, which I will continue to use. I have no problem using Twitter. I enjoy it as a service. But to say that they are somehow so different than each other is kind of crazy. They are not, okay? At the end of the day, they are using our data and they are going to sell us ads against our data. It's absolutely insane. And by the way, this whole Russian bots and this bots, it's happening on Twitter right now. So the Chinese government is basically always on Twitter trying to push their agenda. The Russians are pushing their agenda on Twitter, and they're doing the same thing on Facebook. So I don't see how there's a real difference here. You're just picking one side. Fine. You want to pick that side, cool, but I'm voting with my dollars. I'm voting for both. That's at the end of the day who wins.
Okay, Carlos, go ahead. You're muted.
What Vitaly does is he'll talk for a long time and say a bunch of stuff, and then basically not.
That was less than 2 minutes.
Not make any actual points that point to a certain principle that applies across the board. Okay, what I'm saying here is, I wrote this stuff down. Facebook and
so he was ready for this because I did not write any.
Facebook and Instagram are the biggest purveyors and offenders of free speech and privacy. Only Mark Zuckerberg is the one that's being brought up against in front of Congress to defend things like Cambridge Analytica, election interference, pandemic bans for misinformation. We could talk about Google separately, but I'm saying specifically that. So if you're going to shit on Amit for not caring about privacy and data, and then at the same time be making money, and so you say voting with your dollars, you're giving them money to continue their operations and gloating about how much money you're making. The second thing is you say, like, here's the big problem with it. You say social media companies can do whatever they want. In this country, we have a representative democracy, which means that when we don't like something, we should be able to vote these people out. When you give too much, when you take powers that should be governmental powers, and you put them in the power and you put them under control of the social media companies, what you're saying is that their terms of service have more power than the Constitution. I can't vote Mark Zuckerberg out. You say, yes, I can choose not to participate, but I can't vote them out. I can't vote out the board members. So what you are doing is you are undermining the power of the Constitution by not putting these companies to task and having the government be the one that decides what is correct and what is incorrect in terms of our privacy and our data. That is my point with the whole thing. And so look, you want to go make money on it, that's fine, but don't pretend like you're also a free speech privacy advocate if you're giving the guy money and buying call options on this company and you want to see them go to the moon. It's fine if you do, I don't care, but you can't do both. That's all I'm saying. You can't shit on Amit for not caring about privacy and then giving money to the guy who's eroding that privacy. That's my problem with it. It's a principle thing. It's not financial. When Meta was at $80, it was a good trade. It is a good trade, and it's returning back to the mean. That's what's happening now. That's what's happening. It's a good trade. But personally, my principle will not allow me to invest in that company because I do not want to support that. And if you follow me on Twitter, you know that this is really important to me. I do think about these things. My kids are going to see my Twitter feed one day, and I want them to know that their dad stood for that, and I can still make them money elsewhere. That's just me. And I'm not saying that not to buy it. I mean, Chris Patel was in Facebook. Chris was in.
I still am.
Yeah, and he's still in Facebook. But,
congrats, Chris.
But it's a different conversation. It's a different conversation than the kind of conversation that like you and I will have around this topic. And that's why
you just hate Zuckerberg. I'm saying as an American, I have a right to vote with my dollars, and I vote for Zuck.
I never said.
He's proving more and more that he's the one who's actually the one in charge of this whole social media thing.
Actually,
it's not.
Okay, wait. Okay,
I actually agree with Vitaly there. By the way, I agree with Vitaly.
Okay, I have points on that. But I got.
He has. You keep talking about it like there's some big competitor. That this is the greatest thing billionaires convince us of. That there are competitors to billionaires. Zuck has won. Okay, he owns social media. For me not to even be on it, by the way, for my business, you know what I do? I'm a director of photography. To not use that as a platform where I can push my agenda too.
Right, but what you're doing is
crazy, dude. And the fact is, you're on it as well. I know you're on Facebook. You send me Instagram reels every day to our WhatsApp chat.
Do you understand that that's a straw man?
It's absolutely insane what you're talking about.
You understand that that's a straw man.
He's on WhatsApp every day, by the way, talking 1,000 tweets.
Do you understand?
By the way, all the reels for some reason have big boobies.
Hold on. That is a straw man fallacy. I am not arguing that point.
It is?
I'm not arguing that point. I'm not arguing that social media isn't a necessary component of our of our society right now. I'm not arguing that. So I don't know why you're going off on such a tangent, because that's not the point that I'm trying to make. I'm talking specifically about investing in those companies. There are necessary evils in this world, but I don't have to participate in them.
No, but the problem is, Carlos, Vitaly has no moral compass when it comes to investing, like most people. So that's where
that's all I'm saying. Just admit it. Just admit it. But don't give you shit about privacy. Don't give you shit about privacy for not caring about it, if you also don't care about it when it comes to making money off of it. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Definitely, when you invest, you're supposed to make money, and Meta is printing.
Then you can. Then you know what though? Then
and that is the most important thing, because self-righteousness is not going to feed my kids. It's not.
But that's what you. That's
so self-righteousness can feed your kids. You can feed them all day long with it.
To Vitaly's point, when he was arguing against me and Tanner, he still said he's an investor in Google, right? So he was giving a shit, but he still said he was.
But isn't this the same argument that you'll make when you say I'm investing in Enphase because it's clean energy and I don't want to support oil? You could make.
No, I think his argument is 2% solar penetration. That's Vitaly's argument.
Hold on. Yeah. At the end of the day,
money in oil companies.
Hold on. Okay, if you want to bring up oil, and for sure. At the end of the day, I do believe. Hold on. At the end of the day, I do believe clean energy is the right thing for the world. My background is environmental chemistry and engineering.
Here we go. That's what fallacy is. That's the argument from authority.
No. I actually spent 4 years working on environmental chemistry. I don't think you understand what that means.
That means that you know more than everybody.
No. It means that I actually spent caring about the world, trying to figure out solutions. I did research on it. Dude, I know you're making light of it.
Last point, then we're going to get Chris. Vitaly,
hold on. I spent 4 years doing this for a reason, because I do care at the end of the day that we transition off of oil. But at the end of the day, I do not invest in Enphase because they're green. That's idiotic. I'm not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars because they're green. I'm doing it because they're going to return.
Do you understand my
investment to me?
You're arguing a point I'm not making. What I'm saying is you argue a point of principle when it comes to solar and oil, and you don't argue that point of principle when it comes to social media. That's my whole point. So it's like
I'm not that against. First of all, I'm not against social media. This end all be all ruining everybody's life. Yeah, social media hasn't ruined my life.
What? Carlos, I don't think you feel the same that social media is.
I don't feel social media has ruined our lives.
The data is there.
Yeah, but I think that data is bullshit too. So to be frank, like I agree with Vitaly. I think all that's bullshit.
It is total bullshit, and he's sticking on this like the data. It's like the politicians protecting the kids. We're protecting the kids. We're stopping all of this pornography on the internet to protect the kids.
By the way, Twitter has hardcore porn, by the way. I don't know if Carlos, you probably know, like Twitter is hardcore porn. Any kid can.
Yeah, but that's not okay. Listen,
search hentai.
If you just look at honestly, if you look at the number one platform for, what do they call them? Mambla, like the youth attracted persons. It's Instagram.
Yeah, but Instagram has a shit ton of moderators trying to figure that stuff out. Like, I don't give Zucks all the shit. But again, to pretend like these platforms don't have real damage because the effects of that damage aren't physical. You can't see them in the real world, right? It's not something that you can look at like you could see a physical injury. We tend to ignore it, right? While at the same time we pretend like mental health is an important issue. You can't see it. So it's like carbon dioxide. You don't see it in the air, and so it's easy to ignore that it's there. What I'm saying is the data is there. The data is there in the same way that pornography has ruined a generation of men. Social media has ruined a certain generation of women. The data is there on that. And I'm not saying not to. The thing is, I understand that these companies are a necessary evil in our world right now. You don't exist if you're not on social media. That's an unfortunate reality. But what I'm saying is, don't on one hand pretend that you're investing on principle because you want to get off oil and they're doing such horrible things for the world, and then at the same time be like, but I'm going to invest in Facebook because Zuck is the man. Okay, so we got to get Chris. We got to get Chris.
No, hold on. He's bringing up that, but you invested in Facebook, made your money and left. So the guy who leaves,
okay, hold on,
shit on the thing that because he made some money.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that
ridiculous.
up.
And Palantir too. You shit on that all the time.
Hold on.
Please, we have episodes about it.
I'll shoot down those 2 points in less than a minute. Number one, I invested in Facebook at IPO. Okay, at IPO, I invested in Facebook long before they became what they became now. Even before they were really even monetizing the platform, I invested in it, and I sold out when they ran up a bunch. And I was
when was that? What year was that?
Probably 2 years later, 2 or 3 years later, I was out of it. This is This is a long time ago. So you can't use that against me. What was the second part about you said that I invested in Facebook, and then what was the other point that you said?
It's not hard. Palantir,
you understand, my qualms about Palantir. Literally the only reason I bought Palantir was as a symbol, a gesture of support for
That's
true.
That's true.
That's the only reason I bought it. And there's nothing to do with me believing the company. Look at the stuff that I post against that company. Look at the stuff that I say about it on a daily basis. So this is not about me having conviction in the company. It's 104 shares.
Okay, you got the high moral ground. Congratulations. Feed your self-righteousness to your kids when they grow up. Go ahead.
Christopher Patel, what are your thoughts 20 minutes in to the podcast?
It's the conversations like this are really hard to have because on one hand, you have to think as an investor and take the morality out of it. But then also at the same time, there's something to be said about enjoying the money that you don't feel good getting. I mean, I know it's a weird thing to talk about, but imagine right now you were able to get a deal and something was really good, but it basically screwed someone over. Like, yeah, you would have the money, but you would feel guilty about it. Now, here's the thing, though. Guilt is a perception, right? So what it is if Vitaly right now doesn't feel like, hey, this thing is something that's going to be necessarily an evil thing to a higher degree, then his perception is something different than something that Carlos is. Carlos' perception is, if I invest in Meta, that means like I am part of this evil. Whereas Vitaly's like, look, it's evil, but it's like a little thing compared to everything else out there. So I think this is just perception rather than anything else. Like, here's a good example. I know people right now that are investors in real estate, that they primarily do real estate investing, where they'll buy homes in low income areas, right? Fix up the property and then rent it out at a much higher market rate, right? And I have a personal negative connotation to that because I grew up in a situation where I had to go. We lived in a bad neighborhood. Eventually the neighborhood became good, and then our landlord would come kick us out and bring in the white people. Like, that's how it was. Like in Brooklyn, when things got gentrified, and so that is a lifelong scarring situation for me, and that makes me a terrible landlord because at the same time, I know that sometimes you have to raise the rent to pay for things, and I don't know if I could raise the rent, and so a lot of times my heartstrings will end up getting pulled. So right now, when some people they talk about real estate investing, like I see them on Twitter, like there's the account that I follow, something called the Fi Couple, where they're like, oh, look at us, we invested in this real estate.
I follow them too.
Yeah, it's like I made money on real estate and everything else, and I'm happy for them. But at the same time, I'm like, you guys are like the typical people who used to come in, buy up homes in our neighborhood, and then turn around, raise the rent on us, and then we ended up having to figure out something in the future. And believe it's a business. Look, at the end of the day, it is a business. People have to do it, but because of that feeling that I have, I wouldn't want to be in that role. Now that's just a perception thing, though. Not everything is like right now. I'm sorry, Carlos, you're vaping. Some people hate the fact that people vape. I will never judge you for it. I'll say, whatever, that's cool, man. But like, I know people right now, if you were to vape like near them because they've had like a family member who's got cancer or whatever, they would absolutely like try to be one of those assholes that's just like, why are you vaping? So I think a lot of it is just, yeah.
I've had those conversations with people. And
how do you answer them? How do you answer them?
You know what I say? Everyone's got a vice, right? This is the one vice that remains from my youth. I have given up and fought all of my demons. I grew up in a household where both of my parents smoked like 2 packs a day. Okay. Where my mother admitted to me when I was much older that she would actually buy cigarettes instead of buying us food. She told me this and I was like, wow, the grip on this thing was real. I've had girlfriends at the time when I was young whose parents would complain because they would say that, these girls would come home smelling like cigarettes. And I smoked cigarettes for a long time. It was a real crutch.
Which one? Newports, Marlboros?
Probably like Marlboro Lights. I switch back and forth, but I think everyone smokes Marlboro Lights. And so I struggled with
2 packs a day as well. So
I struggled with it for a while. If anyone's ever smoked cigarettes, it is it's harder to quit, people have said, than heroin. It's very powerful on a physical and emotional level. But I promised my wife that I would be off of cigarettes before we had our first child. And when my friend who knew that I was struggling with this bought me that Juul for like my birthday one year, I said, wow, this seems to be like a middle ground, right? It seems to be a middle ground where I still get what I wanted out of cigarettes, but I'm not. First of all, the financial aspect of it costs way too much. And even to this day, it is something that I struggle with. But how I look at it is I'm open about it, right? I'm open and I'm upfront. This is literally my vice, my one vice. And I challenge anyone.
My advice is Facebook. So there you go.
No, I'm just trying to make a point that everyone has different perceptions of good and evil, and to a certain degree, they can accept a level of, I don't want to call it evil, but something of like a morally tinged company, right? Some people can look way beyond it. Like here's an example, like an oil company. Some people can look at oil companies and say, you know what, fuck it, I don't really care if they're destroying the environment. As long as it makes me money, I'm fine with it. Other people, they're like, you know what, I don't want to be in that role. So it is more perception than it is actual reality. I think when it comes to Meta, when it was at $88, I thought of myself, I'm a free speech person. I want to have free speech out there. I don't want someone arbitrarily policing me, but at the same time, I also kind of wanted to be like, you know what? I want to make the money so that in the future, if I'm rich enough, I could probably have a large enough platform to make a change if I wanted to, right? Like, so
Isn't that
as an
always the
example,
justification? Make the money doing something bad to do something good. That's what everyone.
yeah, I mean, that's what everyone does.
That is
right?
that is the justification. And look,
I want to.
When Meta was at $80, I look, the 10-man thing that we do all the time on the show, I do it with myself, and I say to myself, can I make an argument to invest in Meta, but not a bullshit argument, right? Like not an argument where what's that old saying that says it's easy to fool someone else, but it's hard to.
The only argument you needed was price to sales or price earnings of fixed.
No, but I think what it comes down to is what Chris said. A lot of people can justify horrible things by thinking that they can make up for it later in the future. Like if I put 100,000 into Facebook right now, I'm gonna take some off the top, and then what I'm gonna do with this money is gonna be better. But that's like the road to hell is paved.
Believe it or not, that's how most of major charities are actually formed. Like if you look at the industry, the captains of industry in the United States, most of them, they were involved in some really nefarious things, but they're all like in the future when they got older, they made up for it by doing a shit ton of charity work.
I want to point out, like a person like Warren Buffett, which we all respect, yet, and he does get some shit, but very little shit. He invests in Coca-Cola, where he made a lot of his money, which is not
invest in cocaine, bro.
Well, hold on. My point is that part of obesity is drinking sugared water at McDonald's and wherever else. This is a real problem in America. No one's discussing this, but no one shits on Warren Buffett for being a total immoral dick, which you're shitting on me for. And that's where it's unfair.
I do agree with Vitaly, Carlos. You're giving him too much shit for.
You're giving me too much shit. Where my only thing at the end of the day is that I'm an investor. I see opportunity in Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg. I think he's a fucking killer. He's a winner. He's going to keep winning. Nothing's going to stop him. And I want to participate in this guy's winning. That's what I want to do. Just like I want to participate in Badri's winning, and just like I want to participate in Elon Musk's winning. This is why we're investing. We're not investing to be the moral junkies here, as somebody pointed out. We're investing to make money and make our lives better.
Okay, look,
let's face facts, Carlos. You have to really just accept that's what we're doing. And if you can't, then maybe you're not a real junkie.
No, I will say, hold on. I'll say this.
Let me just answer that. Look, to you personally, and even to people in the chat, they may feel like this is an opportunity to Seas Candy,
Buffett, Dairy Queen. This guy is fucking killing half of America, Warren Buffett.
Listen, I'm just saying, again, to you, to anyone there in the chat, like it's not meant to be a personal attack on you.
No, it is a personal attack. You're being a real dick about it.
More than like 5 words, dude. Okay.
I'll let you stay, but it was a personal attack.
What I'm trying to say is I'm not coming at you to attack you personally, but as your friend, if I see some sort of inconsistencies in a certain message in a way that you're presenting yourself, I am going to tell you in the same way that I would expect you guys to do that to me.
No inconsistencies. I don't think social media is as bad as you're saying.
Okay, but
there's no inconsistencies.
Can I finish my point? What I'm saying is the data's already there. Okay, we already have the data. If social media wasn't damaging to companies, why is Facebook paying billions of dollars in fines in Europe? Why is Mark Zuckerberg in front of Congress defending things like Cambridge Analytica? Why do we have proof of election interference and now after the fact finding out all of the misinformation and disinformation campaigns that were run on Facebook that deplatformed a bunch of incredibly intelligent, smart people when the pandemic was around? We know all of this stuff now.
First of all, I agree. And same thing was happening on Twitter.
And we also know, I know, but Elon Musk has come in and he wasn't around when that happened, and that won't happen again. That's my point. That won't happen again. And we now know, because of the Twitter files, how deep this was, that basically the social media companies, using their terms of service, circumvented the rights of the people guaranteed to them by the Constitution and acted as the censorship arm of the United States government. That has a real effect on our democracy today. And that's all I'm saying. And I think that has as much of an effect on our lives as, like, who's president has as much of an effect on our lives as the damage that, BP did in the Gulf of Mexico when they had that oil spill. You can argue that these things actually do have a real social—
I don't know. Of course they have an effect, but the issue is also that the only social media platform that has multiple billions of daily active users is one company. Okay, it's Facebook and Meta. That's it. Of course they're going to have that effect. Twitter can't even get the same effect because they don't even have the number of people. Like, you're really just missing the point that they have won the whole thing. And that's why.
So what you're saying is that it's not even that they're too big to fail. It's that they're too big to be moral. They're too big.
It's a problem.
No, Carlos, his point is Facebook contracts almost 100,000 moderators. I don't think even Twitter has moderators. Because there's not enough content to moderate.
Twitter does have moderators.
No, hold on. I'm in agreement with you that we need to fix some of these things. No problem, by the way, fixing some of things that go wrong, especially the 2016 election nonsense that was happening. But the same shit is happening just on a smaller scale on all these other platforms like Twitter. It's not any different. It's just that they're so big, you get to see so much more in the media about it because they're just so big.
That to me tells me if that is how much power they have, that is how regulated that they should be. This is
so
not,
in your point,
argument.
Anything big should just be regulated. So as soon as Elon Musk gets too big, he should just be regulated.
No, I'm not saying anything big. What I'm saying is anything too powerful should be regulated. Again, you can't vote Mark Zuckerberg out. You look, we don't know how the 2016—
Yes, I can. As a shareholder, I can.
I want to finish your point. We don't know how the election would have gone had Facebook and Instagram not deplatformed some of these people. Google's responsible for this too. We don't know how the election would have gone if the Hunter Biden laptop story wasn't suppressed. Okay. And it's specifically on Twitter. We don't know. We do know what happened in 2016 when Comey came out right before the election. We saw that you could say that flipped the election. We don't know what would have happened this last time if the Hunter Biden story was suppressed and the New York Post was deplatformed. That is a huge deal, dude. If you can deplatform one of the oldest publications.
Agreed. It's a problem.
Okay, but you can't gloss over and just say it's a problem. Oh well, you have to say, dude, that is a massive, massive error.
Let me give you the benefits though. What has Twitter and Facebook and all these things before he saved it for you? What have they done that is good? Is there any good in this that you see?
What?
Well, they've done something besides being all bad. What is the
good? They created Instagram so I could slide into girls' DMs.
And they created TikTok so I could see them dance.
I think.
But my point is, you're totally glossing over. You're focusing on the bad, and I understand it because you're trying to make a point. But the good is that it brought all of us together. YouTube platforms like this, it brought all these people across the world who are talking to us, who are talking on Twitter, who are talking on Facebook, who are talking on Instagram, and sharing stories and sharing ideas. You're totally missing the good because you want to see the bad.
Which now, Carlos, you have a good point for the bad. I just think Vitaly's point is the good outweighs the bad, which I
no.
In
fact, that's right, and that's why you can't outlaw everything that is good when it has a little bit of bad.
What I'm saying
that is not America.
But the flip side of that is you can't point to the little bit of good when the bad is that bad. When the bad is massive election interference or a mass basically delusion of the entire population of arguably the world around a pandemic. That's a huge, dude. That outweighs any of these positive benefits that you think we're getting from social media. And the reality is it started off as a couple of bad actors that then grew once the government realized that they can basically have a backdoor with
social media. So bad. This guy's right. Get off of Twitter. He's right.
Those are the
social media.
Those are I just completely ignore those arguments because they're nonsense. They're nonsense. I'm not saying not to be on social media, but I'm saying we can still be on them and be critical of them. And this conversation is not about justifying whether or not social media should exist or shouldn't. I'm specifically just pointing out to what seems to me to be a hypocrisy to shit on Amit for not caring about privacy and his data when at the same time investing in the company that is
okay. I'll make it fair.
It was great content. So
that is
make it fair. I'll make it fair. First of all, I do it for the content, and that's the only reason I do any of this shit for.
Yo, Vitaly, hold on.
I don't know me. If people don't know me,
are you guys enjoying this conversation?
If people don't understand,
you've been tweeting a lot more now that you got those 1,000 followers. You're doing a lot for the content. I see you on Twitter. You're doing
listen. The whole point of a podcast is for content. As a filmmaker, I want people to enjoy this, and I'm willing to fucking make myself the enemy for them to enjoy it even, all right?
I love this. I love this.
Because that's
I
what's
don't want you to
important.
be an. I don't
At
want
the
you,
end of
I
the
don't want you
day,
to be an
hold
enemy,
on.
though. That's the thing.
At the
I
end
don't
of the
want you
day,
to
what's
play that
important,
role, dude.
the only reason people watch is
We
because
need
of
the
entertainment.
views, bro. We need the fucking views.
We need the fucking views, exactly. And
All right.
I will keep shitting on Amit, and now I give Amit the right to shit on me. How about that? Is that fair? Amit, you agree on this friendly?
Wait. When you mean shit on you, you're talking about 2 girls, 1 cup type of situation?
Exactly. But I'm saying, look, I'm going to make fun of you all day long about not caring about privacy, and you can go ahead, call me a Mark lover all day long too. Cool. Are we in agreement?
Sucker. Okay.
That
All right,
was
this is a
solid
great
content.
conversation.
Exactly.
was
AJ
great.
knows what's good because we provide the entertainment. That's what we do here.
Well, I don't know. You guys saw. If you guys have been following me on Twitter, and if you guys, Amid, you guys.
Ooh, hold on. We got Big Boy in the chat. I think Zuck is trying to do the right thing, but it highlights just how fragile privacy, democracy, and freedom of speech are.
Thank you, Farzad. It's fragile, and I think Elon
And
Musk.
Farzad, you're fired.
and I think Elon Musk is making a hard line in the sand where he is trying to. He's making the choice to protect the freedoms and the privacy that we say are important, but often overlook when it comes to our own self-interest financially. And I think somebody has to just say no. And Elon said it in some interviews.
And Carlos is that guy. Okay, just so you know, Carlos is that guy is going to fight the good fight.
This is what Vitaly does. Vitaly tries to diminish the core of my argument.
I'm providing entertainment. I don't know what you're doing.
I don't find that.
I'm sorry.
I don't find that.
Okay, no, Carlos, you have a good point. This is why I've been a free speech absolutist.
You've been changing. I've seen you on Twitter. You've been.
Yeah, I'm very big there. Now,
changing.
here's one thing though. I don't know if you guys saw this. There was a Chinese media outlet today that tweeted some shit about Islamophobia, and someone underneath it put a community note. I don't know if this was fake or not. That said, you guys killed the Uyghurs.
Yeah.
That community note is gone. And there's a little bit of why is that? Because it's true.
Can you bring it up? Can you show it?
Bring it up. Bring it up.
I did tweet this out.
I can't remember the account name anymore.
It's Vitaly. Just bring up Vitaly's.
Oh, that's how I found it. Wow.
Yeah, it was Vitaly. Now, okay.
Some guy tweeted it. I retweeted it and said it's pretty.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know for sure, but you'll see my response to him.
Look, billionaire is going to billionaire. Okay. At the end of the day, Elon Musk will do whatever.
Vitaly's consistent. He's consistent on this.
Okay. Can I just
billionaire is going to billionaire, dude.
Okay,
Elon Musk is going to do exactly what he needs to do to protect his investments.
Because, like I said in my response, if your immediate response is to think that it's automatically some nefarious thing on the part of Elon Musk, you are revealing your bias that you just.
No.
I'm sorry.
I have no idea.
You hate the guy, and you want to see him fail as much as you're invested in your future. Absolutely, because any chance he gets to like shit on Elon, he'll take it because it's the easy thing to do or it's fun.
I think that's just content.
I think that's content, buddy.
The truth of the matter is this: the tweet is gone. But
in fact, what's funny you mentioned is because when I was on Threads earlier today.
By yourself,
by myself. A friend of mine who left Twitter, by the way, he's sick of all this bullshit that's going on Twitter because everybody's shitting on each other. That's what they do on Twitter. He's using Threads now more, well, which is today. But I'm like, it's today. But he said, oh, Elon, I left that shitty platform, Twitter, blah blah. I said, dude, no matter if you hate Twitter or not, Elon has done good for the world. Okay, so you can shit on Twitter all you want, but the fact is, do not take away what Elon has done. I was actually defending Elon for him right over there. And you're telling me I'm moving on.
Go ahead.
Here's my point. When you see something like that, if your first thing is thinking, oh, Elon is using Elon bought this platform literally to save free speech and privacy, and it's amazing to me the people that anytime anything is different or anything goes wrong, they immediately attribute it to some sort of nefarious intentions where he's that regular billionaire just using his power. The reality of the community notes is you can upvote them and downvote them based on what's useful and what's not. And I said to you in Vitaly, Dan O'Dowd uses this very effectively with FSD. People community note the shit out of his post because he spreads a lot of lies about FSD. And what happens? They rate it not useful. And they say that his posts are full of shit. And what happens? A community notes shows up. Now, Dan O'Dowd uses.
You're sort of making my point.
Can I make my point?
Fine, but you're making my point while you're making your point.
Can I make my no? Because and I'll explain why you're not making my point. Because what Dan O'Dowd does is he uses his money and influence to pay a large number of people to rate those community notes not useful. By rating them not useful, the community notes disappear. And that is a way of essentially controlling the moderation.
Okay, so I agree with you. I agree with you. So the Chinese government is on Twitter voting us down.
Can I finish my point? So my point is the community notes disappearing does not mean necessarily that Elon went in there and said, delete it because I need to be good with China. could also mean that China, as a very powerful and influential nation, has their own system to be able to downvote those community notes and make sure that they don't appear. I'm not saying that both can't be true, but I'm saying to automatically assume that it's a billionaire's going to billionaire and Elon's going to do what he's got to do is, I think.
So Carlos, last question. Let's say
misleading.
Elon, he did remove that from China because he's worried about Tesla. You would criticize him for that?
Absolutely, I would. Absolutely, I would.
First of all, I would say he's in the right because look, at the end of the day, he has multiple interests and multiple investors that he's owed to basically. So he has to protect Tesla. He has to protect SpaceX. He has to protect these things. If it involves removing some sort of comment from Twitter, that is not the worst offense that he can make. It's just not.
I agree.
It's not that important. Okay?
It's not, but you know what? He has a history. He has a history of doing things that can be looked at as not protecting Tesla investors. Buying Twitter was a massive thing that the entire Tesla community, all of Wall Street, did not want him to do it.
I agree, but that's an overreaction. That's an overreaction.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The public perception was if you do this, you're taking time away from Tesla. Just get in the factory, make fucking cars, shut the fuck up, or free speech. Stop saying your stupid opinions online. Just make cars and get rockets into space. He did it anyway. And ultimately it worked out fine, right? And we're good. We're almost near, we're like 30% away from all-time highs. So you're right. It ended up being a nothing burger. But at the time, that was seen and he was attacked for not protecting Tesla.
You know what's good about this podcast? The silence of Chris.
Someone wrote Chris is studying his SoFi calls.
No, he sold
a
them
great
all.
conversation.
Chris sold them all, man.
409 people, you enjoyed it. Chris, let's move on. I don't know if you had any certain topic you wanted to talk about. Do you have anything? Because I have another one if you don't have anything.
Yeah, just
inflation,
overall,
I think you wanted to discuss something like that.
Yeah, I think overall we should probably talk about the market, where we are in terms of valuations on a lot of companies, where we're headed for the second half, because we're finally past the halfway point of the year. So we have to position ourselves for the rest of the year that's coming up. There's a lot of bullishness out there. From what I can tell, there's a sentiment of FOMO that's happening, which is kind of crazy to see because it seems like retail, well, I don't want to say retail. I want to say guys like us, we fucking killed it. The first half of this year where everyone was like, oh my God, the world is falling apart. We were fucking just going ham. All four of us have had triple digit returns this year. So I just want to give a shout out to all of us.
I killed it in the last month of May.
Innovix, whatever the fuck you call it.
Yeah, we super micro, we fucking killed it. Meta killed it, right? Like this first half has been freaking amazing. Anyone that's been on our podcast has been listening. We've given some golden gems out there that have just absolutely killed it.
You're not even done. Google, Amazon, Unity. Yeah. Like we could just fucking hit it out of the park, baby.
Yeah. So I just gotta say, shout outs,
Innovix, they've all been
shouted out
as well. TFC,
Palantir, right there.
Palantir printed.
Yeah.
Wait, let me ask you a question. Wait. But when you say that, okay, people are foaming, do you think that we're in like a valuation bubble right now?
So this is what happened. Last year in November, we had peak fear in the market, right? So all these big guys, they were all like, "Oh, we're gonna crash." You know, they were even among our friends. Some people were like, "No, we're going way beyond the 2600 on the S&P. Like, there's just too much shit out there."
Those people are not our friends.
Well, whatever. I'm just saying now.
But they create opportunity.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, when you saw that peak fear kind of bubble up, because everyone was trying to go the traditional route. The first thing everyone's like, I still remember the argument that everyone was making. Well, the yield curve is inverted. That means we're definitely going for a recession now. So we need to all sell all our stocks and we need to buy into like bearishness. And at the time, I was just like, look, we need to swim against the tide here, because what you're seeing is valuations that are just absolutely crazy on the low side, right? You had literally Meta trading at levels that weren't seen since 2016. Think about their business, how much of it's improved since 2016, yet it was trading at the price of 2016.
Same with Amazon.
And same thing with Amazon. So many companies that were just like, literally all they had to do was just turn the dial and say, you know what? Maybe we don't need as many people on our team.
That was literally it. They were just like, we're getting rid of a bunch of people.
It was literally, and I remember the moment that set it off for me, and that was following Brett Gertzner when he sent that letter to Mark Zuckerberg saying, look, we need to get financially fit. The last 2 years of overindulgence in terms of spending on people, that needs to stop. And I thought, and that's when we saw that rotation in tech, right? Where you still had all these cash flows, but people were like, you know what, we need to cost rationalize. We need to make sure that we're actually doing right by our shareholders. And I think that's what set things apart. And I think a lot of those things are paying.
Well,
I
gotta say, who's the guy that started that? That was Elon Musk when he fired 85% of Twitter.
Well, Elon Musk
everyone followed. I
agree. He did help push everybody.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was like, you don't need fucking 85% of your people. Just what do they say? Who's valuable? Who's necessary and who's valuable? That's it.
I still remember when he first came on Twitter and fired 75% of people. I still remember that conversation. I'm not sure if you remember. I mean, I was like, why does Twitter have 5,000 people working, considering they're literally just a microblogging site? Like, it made no sense whatsoever, right? From a tech perspective.
Chris gives the best business. Just a microblogging site.
No, it is. Twitter, at the end of the day, is still just a microblogging site. It's not overly complicated.
All it is. It's literally literally a group chat with 150.
I don't know. For Carlos, it sounds like freedom.com. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
well, the whole point that I'm trying to make is that
I had to say that. I'm sorry.
We're on the.
I was going to give you a compliment, but now fuck you.
We're on the other side of that.
No, I want to hear it. Go ahead. Forget about Chris. What's the compliment?
No, Chris, please continue.
No, I'm just saying we're on the other side of this now, where a lot of companies, their valuations have gone from undervalued to kind of really crazy valuations, considering that there may be a looming recession coming. But then again, there's also another part that's saying, you know what? The recession has been so projected. It's like it's one of those things that, like, you ever like, it's like a hole, right? On the ground when you're like traveling. If you see the hole, you're going to do everything in your power to swerve around it, right? So every company right now has been preparing for this recession. The question now is the recession actually going to even come? Technically, right? So my whole thing is, it's up to the Fed now to see where we end up going with this, because the Fed has a habit of overdoing things. They overdid things when they said that things were transitory, right? Because they took a step. They could have started raising rates at the time, but instead they were just being like overly cautious. And then they started to what do you call it? Right now, tighten the screws on the economy by raising interest rates. I think right now, them pausing was a really good move, but hopefully they don't over tighten to the point where we end up getting into a really bad recession. And then they have to come in and save the day by, like lowering interest rates and deflating everything again.
I think you got it backwards. They paused already, and the bad recession would come if they kept raising, because that's what makes money flow stop.
So I would normally agree with you on that, but we're right now we're in this bizarre world where, and this is my theory on housing, okay? And this is something that we had a Twitter back and forth with me and Carlos about, because my theory that once the Fed starts to lower interest rates, that's when we're going to start to see a recession. I know that sounds crazy. I really know that sounds crazy, but what that means to me, and the reason why I say that is because right now with housing, I think the next area that's going to be very challenging for the general economy is going to be around shelter. I think there's been so much money pumped into housing by the general population. We're likely to see some level of correction, and that correction might end up showing up in the general economy. So I'm still doing a lot more research on the macro side, but I would say I am cautious about the rest of the year. I'm bargain hunting right now, but I'm not overtly like deploying everything I have like I did with November. Like November, it was just, I wish I had more money in November. That was like my biggest like regret right now, is not taking out a second mortgage on my properties and buying more shit. But I mean, that's all. But that's one of those things that you just can't do, right? Like you have to like live in the real world. But yeah, it's just, yeah.
You think stocks are coming down in the next couple months?
I mean, I think that there is something to be said about watching earnings very closely, right? To see where we are. Like if there's a lot of earnings beats out there, I think we're fine. I think the bull market is going to keep going. But at the same time, if earnings are starting to get impacted by these interest rates, because they're all those changes to the interest rates are going to show up in earnings now, not like not in the past. Usually what happens is that time that takes between the Fed hiking rates, depending on the industry, it can lag significantly. So I think that effect may end up playing badly for earnings depending on the industry we're talking about.
I want to point out a couple of things because just to respond to you, Tom Lee pointed out, and I love following Tom Lee, definitely an Uber bull, but he said that when we are up over 10%, it's most likely we're going to be up over 10% again in the second half of the year. So just throughout history, I forgot what his stats were, 70%, 80%. I'm in alignment that once you're starting a bull market, you continue that with pullbacks. Pullbacks are okay, by the way. It's all right to come back 5-10%. It's all right. We don't have to cry about it. Number two, this real estate thing you're talking about, as rates go down, it will not create a recession in real estate. Okay, that's not going to happen. What happens is that in good areas, I'm talking about only those like New York, New Jersey, Florida, people buy up the houses because they're waiting on the sidelines, waiting to buy up the houses as they enter the market. And there's not enough supply right now. So I don't know where you're talking about this massive supply influx coming in just because we lower a 1% interest rates. That's not going to happen.
Well, I don't think he's talking about a 1%.
I don't know what he's talking. If he's talking about a 4% down, then we're talking about multiple years of decreasing rates.
So the problem is this: when you start to lower rates, human psychology isn't just like, oh, you know what? They lowered rates this time. You know what? Maybe I'll wait another 6 months to see how much more it goes lower, and then another goes lower, and then another goes lower. That's how human psychology is. When they see a trend happening, they typically follow that trend. On top of it, there is a lot of people right now that want to sell, but the alternative for them is I don't want to sell my 3% mortgage to inherit a 7% mortgage.
Right.
So if the interest rates go down to, let's say 4%, 5%, whatever, that's only about a 1 to 2% additional that they'll end up paying for their next home. Right. So I think there's a lot of inventory that's being held off of the market that's actually causing rental that are going into the short-term rental market and also going into the long-term rental market. And we're starting to see both of those things crater. So I'm starting to see short-term rentals, like the rates are going down because the demand is kind of slowing down a little bit. It's not off, but it's slowing down because there's just the sheer number of short-term rentals is crazy. So that's number one.
Is this Airbnb? Is this Airbnb?
Yeah, Airbnb.
Oh, yeah.
And then
a lot of people that have those second properties that are renting them out, if they're not getting the people to fill them, right, to justify it, to get the income, they're now stuck with this property, right? But if they also bought it at a low interest rate, they don't want to sell it out right now.
Yeah, and then on top of it, what you're also seeing is in the short-term rental market, in the long-term rental market, prices are starting to stabilize, and actually even in some cities actually starting to decrease a little bit.
That's good.
So, yeah, which is good.
Not a bad thing.
No, which is good for the average person that needs a home. The problem is if you're a home buyer and your cash flow is primarily driven by your rental income, that's really bad, because now if you're not able to renew your leases at the higher rates or higher prices, you got a problem. The other thing is
that's for the people. Once again, I am a real estate investor. You're talking about the people who got in the last 6 months?
Last 2-3 years.
I've been in real estate for 15, 20 years.
No. And
this is not a problem.
And look, guys like you are going to be just fine. My thing is, the last thing I've seen in the last probably 5 to 7 years is a ton of people thinking that real estate is this great magic way to do income, right? Cash flow income. The problem that you're running into is that these guys, they started to leverage on top of leverage, on top of leverage, on top of leverage. I saw it on TikTok. There's so many people leveraging one property to get another one, to get another one, to get another one. And it's almost like
it's a bubble in and of itself. Yeah.
Well, it's like a domino effect. And the other thing is the loans that they got to finance those additional homes. Some of them are not 30. A lot of them are not 30-year fixed rates that you can only get a 30-year fixed rate as your primary, maybe secondary, but I don't know if you can get it on your 20th rental property, right? Most of those loans are coming from something called a DSCR.
Wait, and I think variables?
Well, I have to do more research on DSCR loans. This is where I want to speak to someone who's a real estate investor, and I want to ask them, like, how did you get your 5th home? How did you get your 8th home, right? Not from actual, like, from your primary residence and that you use the cash flow for the last 5 years. I'm saying, how were you able to pick up 5 homes in less than 5 years? Like, that's my question.
Look, follow the what is it? The DeFi couple on Twitter.
The FI couple. That's the thing. I have to. I want to ask them, how did you get the financing for it?
Because why don't you tweet at them and see if we can get them on the show? Like, well, that's one thing that we don't talk about enough here is real estate investing.
Why not?
As at least a percentage of your portfolio. Some people aren't interested in it, but
I want to know. I want to know in the chat. Does anyone have a DSCR loan that wants to talk about it? Because I would love to just pick your brain about it. Because some of the information that I'm getting is through like a lot of like third parties here and there. So. You know, the other thing is
real quick, Amit, are you putting anybody on the pod? It's almost
no. We're gonna end in like 10 minutes. Can you give your thoughts real quick? Because we got a $40 super chat by Rob. Thank you for that. Rent control. His company is purchasing housing, so he's curious about your thoughts on rent control overall.
Rent control is not a good thing, because what it does is it artificially controls prices, and what it does is it de-incentivizes more building. That's what I hate about it, right? So if you look at New York City does not have an inventory problem. All the rent increases in New York City, they're like crazy amounts of rental increases. But if you look at the amount of rent stabilized and rent control buildings in New York City, how many apartments there are, it's nuts. So if all of those came onto the market and were market rate, the rents would like crater. Like if you look at New York City, that's how it is. Now, the thing is, if you are of a certain income bracket and you've been like that for the last 30 years, you know, you've benefited disproportionately. And I'm sure Vitaly and Carlos, you guys know the story. There are people, when they were really broke, they got a rent control building or rent stabilized building and had like a $500 rent that only went up to like $700. And right now, their income is like 200, 300,000, yet they're still living in their rent controlled apartment that their grandmother inherited 50 years ago.
My aunt was living on Riverside Drive in Manhattan. She had that apartment from the 70s. Okay, that was like when she was like 20 something. She was in her 50s when she got rid of it. But that apartment was like $600 a month. And every other rent in all the other rents in the rest of the building were something like, in the thousands of dollars, because it was right near like Columbia University. The building so wanted her to get out, okay, that they would go to the next door neighbors and cause problems in the pipes that shared a wall with her to like flood the apartment, like literally did everything that they could. It was like that movie. I forgot which movie that was. Where the guy put like cockroaches in the house, like moved in and then put a bunch of cockroaches. It was literally doing everything they could to get her out. And after
the super.
Yeah. And she would pay the rent a year up front. She would say, what is it? It's like $600 a month. So what is it? 12? She paid $3,600, like write a check and just say for the year. And they hated her. Eventually they were able to get her out. And like the rent went up to like $4,000 and like that month.
There are people in the village. There's people in the village right now in New York City that have a rent on a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, $600. I mean,
yeah,
and it's
I know
crazy.
Those people. They're filmmakers. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yep.
One of my exes got grandfathered into a rent-controlled apartment when she was living in the city, and she had a bunch of roommates and started out in like the small bedroom and worked her way up to get the big bedroom. She was controlling the lease and worked it out where even if she was charging everyone like virtually nothing for their rent, her portion of the rent to live on like East 2nd and like right near in on the not the Lower East Side, but what is it, East 2nd in Manhattan? She was like $200 a month or $400 a month. She lived there for like 4 years. It was nothing.
Did you guys ever watch Friends? Like one of the questions that everyone has, like, how do they all live in New York City,
right,
working fucking jobs as like baristas and shit and like massage therapists in New York City? Well, it turns out the reason was because Monica inherited. I don't watch Friends a lot. I just got told this.
Okay.
They like Monica's grandmother or something. They inherited the apartment that's rent controlled from Monica's grandmother, and so that's how they.
And no politicians have changed this for the past 40 years on rent control.
Dude, damn! Thank you. $100 bucks.
What?
Yes, you get.
What?
I'll take it.
You guys nailed it. I have these stories and more. And yes, I have DSCR loan experience, etc. It's what my company does at scale across the U.S. Wow.
See, the thing is, that's what worries me about DSCR. Only that. What are the terms like in terms of resetting based on that capital, that cash flow?
Wow.
If the cash flow drops, does that mean that you have to refinance at a different rate? Like, is it fixed for like how many years, like traditionally, or it's like a 30-year fixed with a fixed interest rate, or is it variable based on SOFR, like what do you call it, overnight funding rates?
So how do you know all
and
these
like how often-
acronyms, bro?
Because I actually do research. I know what I'm talking about, son.
SOFR, DSL. The only DSLR
You don't know
I
what?
is my
Do you know what
camera, bro.
Do you know what SOFR is? Overnight funding rates, which means that the rate short-term overnight funding rates. A lot of
also known as predatory lending.
No. It just means that, like, depending on if you do like variable interest, the way that it works is that you have to base it on something. So what they do is it used to be something called LIBOR, right? Now it's SOFR. So if you get like an adjustable rate like loan, like a corporate loan, there is a baseline plus a couple of points here and there. So like, let's say you have a variable rate variable interest that's like 5%. So SOFR would say at a minimum, if the SOFR is, let's say, 1%, what they'll do is they'll tack on 400 basis points to that. Now, if interest rates go up to 5%, that means that the other 400 basis points goes on top of that, which means that now your interest rate fluctuates from 5% to 9%. Right. So that's how adjustable variable rates work, especially if you're doing commercial bonds and everything else. Like when you go through a company's balance sheet, really have to do good research on their interest rates and how they're impacted. Like one of the reasons why I'm bullish on office REITs in New York City is because the company SLG has a ton of adjustable rate mortgages, but they were smart. 2 years ago, they bought up a whole bunch of hedges with insurance companies saying, look, we will hedge our variable rate mortgages. So interest rates went up, but their payments, their interest expenses didn't go up as much. So that's like where you have to be like, you have to like really go in through and do like deep dives in companies. So, yeah.
That's fair. Thank you, Rob, for the super chats. Means the world to us. $140. It's a lot of money. So thank you for that. Then we're going to end it there. Spirited debates, good real estate stuff at the end. Good stuff.
A couple things. Johnny or whoever's got the gear, put up our new channel.
Oh, he's been putting it up.
Oh, he has. Okay, put up the new channel and put up the individual Twitters if you want to follow us. And then what I should say is, I did get into a somewhat heated debate with Mark Frohnmeyer, the former CEO of Arcimoto, on Twitter recently.
Really?
I tagged you in it.
I didn't see it.
I
was on Threads. I was on Threads.
You weren't in the metaverse?
I've been on Threads all week.
I had early access.
I responded to something. Let me see if I can pull it up. I responded to something that Ross Gerber said about Threads.
Didn't you interview that guy though?
Yeah, no, he was our first on Freelancer Finance. He was the first CEO that gave us a chance. We followed that company, dude, from like $1.79 all the way up, all the way down.
So did the argument kind of get like personal or something, or it was just like intense?
No, it didn't get personal. It was me. I was responding to something that Ross Gerber said about Threads. It was speculating on the success of Threads, and I made one of my Carlosisms, I guess, about Facebook and Meta. And then some people started responding, and he chimed in, and then him and I started going at it.
Wait, what did he say? What did he say?
I'm gonna try to pull it up. But anyway, and then like I had to go or whatever. I said something and then he called me and we just started getting on the phone and he was like, this is why Twitter should have a function where when you're in the middle of a heated debate, you just push a button and it immediately puts you in a space. And I was like, bro, that's what the Finance Junkies is. Why don't you come on the show and we'll do this? And he said he would come on the show and,
very cool.
debate this with us. Awesome. So that's something that definitely want to let you guys
By the
know.
way, I did a poll 32 minutes ago. I asked the chat who's the real junkie. We got 229 votes and Amit got 46%.
I hate you, man. You're such a
he does do 16 hours a day of finance
the
content.
system is rigged.
No, I also said please pick Amit. I won't tell them I said to pick Amit.
Well, do it for real. Do it for real right now in the last few minutes.
No, then you're gonna win if I do it for real.
No, let's see who
like Amit just looks pretty while Chris eloquently talks about this, and Faze Vitaly this, Carlos philosophically about Facebook. Amit just sits there. He's not the best junkie.
I mean, you
got Palantir wrong.
Bro, listen, you could argue that the two people that could be eliminated from this show would be me and Vitaly. Like, honestly, people come to see you and Chris. As far as today,
not after that dog fight we got today. That was good.
You think people want to hear me and Vitaly yelling at each other?
Oh man, bro,
I think people want to be entertained and they don't know that. I think that's the problem.
Even the people in the chat, they're like, "Oh my god, move on." They're listening because they love it's debates. It's fun, It's good. Yeah, some people like you, Carlos. Some people like Vitaly.
Maybe so. Okay, I can't hold that against them. No. I'm gonna try.
All right, we got to end it. We'll go over the thread tomorrow.
AT, I'm here for Vitaly. Come join us on the Discord. I'll talk to you. Ignore these haters.
But but I will just to end the debate. What I will say, like I said, I was going to give you a compliment, Vitaly. What I was going to say is, everybody that's shitting on Vitaly, even if you agree with me and shitting on Vitaly, you need someone like Vitaly in your life. Like, just so you know, you can't have everybody that agrees with you all the time, even philosophically. You need people that disagree with you. This is one of the reasons why I think Vitaly and I's friendship has thrived, even though it's been somewhat what's the word, intense, say, the last 30 years. It's because I think
last 30 years.
Yeah, I met you at 15, dude. I'm 46. It's been
you guys had
30,
occasional hand jobs together.
Okay, well, let's ignore
that was
that.
their band, for those that don't get the
Yes, for those who don't know. So you do need people like that. You do need people that sort of challenge you and push up against you, the boundary of the philosophical bubble that you're trying to create around yourself, right? I think everyone does try to create a bit of an echo chamber. It does not allow these things. And so it's the same thing with in physically, same reason why you would get into martial arts is to test yourself. You do need to have these people in your life that test you and force you to defend, right? It's like you were saying, Amit, right? You need to defend, and constantly defending your opinions makes you
better at arguing them. That's it.
Well, it makes you better at arguing, but it also forces you to rethink them and come up with clear, concise arguments why you are for or against something. And so to that fact, like, we argue about something silly like this today, but then we'll be on the WhatsApp sending gifts.
At the end of the day, look, I just want to point out, me and Carlos are friends, and we're going to fight, and it's going to be so fucking annoying. I agree there. But
I'm going to win. I'm going to win.
Yeah, I don't think so. But at the end of the day, I made more money. It's just,
I mean, all right. Are we doing that? I mean,
all right, we got to end the pod there. That's
no. I did actually have something. I had to say that because it just came to my mind.
No, because that's what he's.
No.
You both made a shit ton of money.
The point is the pool. No, wait.
Dude, I have had a pool since 2017.
I know. Hold on.
It's like
no. The point is, look, at the end of the day,
we're comparing dick size. We're getting into that.
Yeah, we're getting into size.
Here, I'm sharing it. Admit, I got that.
No, hold on. I do want to actually say something important. The point is that if you let something like meta, which means nothing to me at the end of the day, break up any sort of friendship over 30 years, that is the stupidest thing in the world, because meta means nothing to me at the end of the day. It just doesn't. It's just a dollar sign.
Yeah, but when
as soon as I get my dollars,
your face turns red and you get angry and you
I want to win an argument, and I think I'm right. But at the end of the day, honestly, like it's just a stock. Let's face it, it's a stock.
Here, real quick, share the screen, Amit, because I had to go digging to find this thing we showed. So this was the argument that I had with that started it all with Ross Gerber. He was like, from the people who brought us social manipulation and distortion, a new Twitter called Threads. Any thoughts on the new Facebook social competitor? And I said, the window to launch a Twitter competitor is long closed. Threads will suffer the same manipulatory distortion, censorship, echo chambers, propaganda, and highlight the freedom on this platform. It'll follow Libra, Portal, Messenger Phone, and Horizon Worlds. I forgot to mention Facebook Watch, and it will be an epic fail. And then Mark Freinmeier chimes in. Normally, I would agree. You can see some of this. You'll find it in my threads. We started going back and forth about it. And then finally, when we get down to the bottom here, he's like, we just proved that Twitter needs a we'll do it live button that immediately sets up a space. That's what we got on the phone. And then I just said, hey, let's hash this out on an upcoming episode of Finance Junkies with us three. The cage match, we'll have a cage match and Tetris as a tiebreaker. So he agreed. And so at some point we'll get him on the show.
Okay. Perfect.
We'll get him on the show.
So that'll be interesting.
Good stuff. Fun debate. Chris, thanks for all the awesome real estate stuff at the end. Your thoughts on the market. We'll keep going on it later tomorrow. We got to talk about SoFi. They announced earnings, so we'll talk about SoFi tomorrow. We'll keep going from there.
Cool. Later. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Thank you for being here.
If someone wants to hop on that has real estate experience in DSCR,
this guy.
I would love to have you guys on
Me
because
too.
I really want to pick your brain because this is one of the sectors that
you want to be on.
Yeah. Because the thing is, this is the one part of the sector that's a little bit concerning. I know a lot of people have given up their day jobs to become real estate moguls. And whenever I see a whole bunch of retail people chasing in one direction, I always have to question it. And this is an area that's worth exploring. So if there's anyone that has experience with DSCR loans that doesn't mind coming on, even if it's just like a voice only, you don't want to show your face, totally cool with it. Just join in and I'd love to pick your brain. Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. See you guys tomorrow night. Thank you for being here.
Bye.